This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
This week on Off the Record, smile, you're not on candid camera. City Council has its doubts about returning red light cams to Charlotte intersections, plus all those new condos and apartments along Charlotte's light rail blue line extension. But who can afford them? Also, how about scanners at every school? More on what the police chief says will keep CMS safe from guns. And one big unhappy family. We'll talk about Atrium Health and the doctors who want out. Off the Record's next on PBS Charlotte. Hi, I'm Jeff Sonnier. This is Off the Record, where we talk about the stories you've been talking about this week. And if you watch the news, read the news, or listen to the news, you'll recognize the names and the faces around our table this week. First of all, Eli Portillo from the Charlotte Observer and Mark Becker from WSOC-TV. Also, John Paul Gallis from CLT.biz and Jonathan Lowe from Spectrum News. Thanks all for joining us. Thank you at home for joining us this week. And, you know, if you stick around Charlotte long enough, some stories, they're like the cicadas. They keep coming back year after year after an absence. I guess this week's cicada story would be red light cameras. They're talking about it at City Council this week, although with not a lot of enthusiasm. Why are we talking about them again after having the cameras, taking them away, voting them down again a couple years ago? Who wants to take this first?
So I think I'll start by saying it's simple. A lot of people died in 2016. I think 74 people died in traffic crashes or either being hit by a car. So clearly there's an issue with running red lights, dangerous driving.
Yeah, and again, it's political. Everything's political, right, on some level. And Vi Lyles, when she was running for mayor, said, I want to bring these things back.
Right.
I mean, we were around, some of us, for the first time with the red light cameras, and they made perfect sense, right? I mean, I know of one particular intersection near where we go to work every day, and you knew it was there. It was no hidden cameras, as they say. It was right there, and so it started to turn yellow, and boom, you stopped. But I think it's something that it looks like an easy fix to a growing problem. Often the devil's in the details, and it isn't quite so easy. Last time, I don't think anybody objected to the principle of getting a ticket for running a red light. The problem was where the money was going, and it was supposed to go to schools, and the business model didn't work.
It ended up going back to the provider of the cameras.
Right. The whole idea originally was the cameras would pay for themselves.
Correct.
But once the courts decided that the revenue from those tickets had to go back to the schools, suddenly the cameras didn't pay for themselves, and that's one of the reasons the City Council got out of the red light cam business in the first place.
Yeah, but let's think about the real reason for red light cams. We're talking about victims, not the victims of being the people who get the tickets from the red light cameras, but the people who get killed from people running red lights. We're going to have more congestion in the city with the growth of our population, and we better get used to it. And one way to reduce deaths at our intersections are red light cameras, and we ought to talk about using them effectively and making sure they are a deterrent so people slow down and are thoughtful and stop for red lights. Look, even if you're starting your car at an intersection when the light turns green, you want to be secure in the fact that there's not a car coming from one of the other directions. Of course, we were all taught that it's wise to be thoughtful and look in both directions, but we don't always have that capacity with the traffic around here. So let's think about the value of red light cameras. I think it's time they bring them back.
So one of the solutions that they're looking at is a not one size fits all. So Vision Zero is what this idea that they brought up. And it's not just red light cameras, it's protected bike lanes, reducing speed limits in some areas. And they actually, during the City Council meeting earlier in the week, brought up the example of San Francisco, which I think has seen a 30% reduction in traffic crashes. Last year only had 20. And we're talking about a huge city. New York City is another one that is using Vision Zero, has seen, I think, a 28% reduction in their crashes. So that was one of the ideas that the city manager brought up last week. But back to Mark's point of this being political, that's why they had to table this. I mean, it got a lot of press last week, a lot of attention, and they really didn't do anything. They're going to have to come back to it. You heard Councilman Braxton Winston, basically he's against red light cameras, but you have Republican Tariq Bakari basically come out and say he wants to see them come back. So It will be interesting. You know, Greg Phipps, what is Democrat, is for it. It will be interesting to see where they fall on this and what they end up doing.
Yeah, nobody opposes traffic safety, but there's a cost here too. I think the city manager said that reinstituting the cameras would cost the city roughly $750,000 a year. That's beyond what they would collect in the revenues that would go to the schools. The taxpayers essentially would have to come up with an extra $750,000 a year in the budget to make this program put it back online again. So I guess while the schools look at it as a potential maybe small source of revenue, but a source nonetheless, the city's got to find a way to pay for them separately from that, regardless of how many tickets they write. There's a cost involved here, and that cost is essentially what killed the program in the first place back in, 2006, I guess it was.
I think
Red
you
light
can also
cameras.
I'm
get-
sorry, go ahead, Eli.
I think you can also get into an equity issue depending on where the cameras are. You know, in poorer neighborhoods, these fines, even a small fine to someone who's more affluent, can be quite onerous. And if you pick up a couple of those and you lose your car or you get your license restricted as a consequence, people face troubles going to work. They might drive with a suspended license. You get arrested for that, then you're in a lot of trouble. So I think that is some of what Councilmember Winston was getting at, is this can be an issue that even though the fine seems small to many people, for some people, depending on the neighborhood they're in, they can be quite burdensome.
Yeah, I think Councilman Winston Braxton talked about criminalizing the behavior. Well, it is a crime to run a red light, but I get the concept here is this, this eye in the sky, Big Brother camera. That's regardless of, in some way it's very fair, but also there's an equity problem for people who can't afford the tickets, and it just seems to be a lot more moving parts than there used to be when it came. This used to be a simple traffic issue, then it became an education issue, then a spending issue, there's an equity issue.
Now there's a safety issue.
Every issue, and this is just the latest one, seems to have so many moving parts that all these different council members answering to different constituent groups are all mindful of these days.
We should be aware that the red light cameras are already operating in Raleigh, Wilmington,
Fayetteville.
Greenville, and Fayetteville.
Yeah, and I saw that, I was looking up some of the figures. Wilmington raised $900,000 for schools through the program. Raleigh raised about $1 million for schools, but Fayetteville found that while there were fewer T-bone accidents, there were more rear-end accidents, which I guess is all those folks afraid of getting a ticket and slamming on the brakes as they speed through the intersection.
Been there and done that.
So-
But yeah, I mean, and after that, they took the cameras away the last time, the numbers continued to drop, and that's because specifically of those rear-end collisions. There were fewer of those, significantly fewer, because there weren't as many people slamming on the brakes.
And I think it's also important to point out that this can extend beyond just red light cameras. I'm from the DC area, and there are speed cameras there. There are places where if you go 5 miles over 35 miles an hour, even if it seems like a very wide drivable road, every time you'll get popped with a fine. So I can understand the people who say, well, where does this end? And
It's like a robot speed trap. I
yes,
mean, it's,
and those are they'll get you every single time.
Wow.
And you never get a break for them.
And we actually had speed cameras here briefly after the red light cameras came in. And red light cameras were generally viewed as a success, and then the speed cameras came in, and they didn't stay very long, but they went out at the same time as the red light cameras did.
Well, it is interesting to listen to the new council members kind of revisit some of these old issues that other council members have struggled with, but maybe not struggled with as much. Again, for now, the issue's been tabled. It's going to come back to city council sometime in the near future, so we'll probably talk about it again sometime in the near future. I want to change gears to a story that you did this week, Eli, about affordable housing along the Blue Line extension. I think the headline talked about it being a missed opportunity. And in a town that has made such a big deal about providing affordable housing to folks on a larger scale, it really does seem like a chance to do something that was just missed by the city in this case.
Right. So since the city's been talking about transit and rail lines since the early 2000s, there have been policies and plans that say there should be 5 to 25% of the housing built along the Blue Line reserved for people with lower incomes. And the thinking behind that is cars are extremely expensive. It can cost $10,000 or more per vehicle to operate. And the people who can really benefit from reducing the number of cars they have, or if they don't have a car, having an alternate means of transportation, are people at the lowest end of the income scale. But the city has taken very few, almost no concrete steps to make those goals happen. Despite a lot of talk about it, they basically on the Blue Line's first leg and then on the northern extension, stepped back and let the market do what the market does. So property values shot up. A lot of private owners and developers have profited very handsomely, and there are almost none, somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 200 affordable units along the rail line, and another 200 or so planned. And that's it out of the nearly 10,000 apartments you've got planned or underway along the whole Blue Line.
And that's got to be frustrating for the folks who are advocating for affordable housing, in particular when the city, when they talk about affordable housing or assisted housing, oh, we don't have enough sites. There aren't enough places where we can build. This was a golden opportunity. I mean, development does not happen along the rail lines by mistake. The city recognizes these rail lines as a development tool. They had a tool in their toolbox
They
that
will
they
tell
could
you
have
it's
used.
more about development
Right.
than moving people.
And to say that and then not to also dovetail that, that move with the goal of affordable housing just seems awfully short-sighted. I mean, to step back and let the market do what it will when you have the opportunity to steer the market, at least in some way, shape, or form. Again, this is a frustrating lack of action on the part of all those folks who are looking for some action on the part of City Council to provide more low-income housing.
One thing that I think is interesting about what Eli just said is I live in the University City area, grew up on Eastway Drive. This Northeast extension goes through plenty of neighborhoods that would certainly benefit from way more than 200. You're talking about Hidden Valley.
Some of the poorest zip codes in the city.
Tom Hunter Road area, North Tryon Corridor, Sugar Creek Corridor. I mean, these are neighborhoods that for years have wanted better options. And it's just, it is a sad, unfortunate thing.
Well, I actually saw that play out the day that they opened it for public riding. We were at the Parkwood station, which is one of the first ones north of uptown there. And there were a couple of ladies got off the train and were saying, I went to interview them. I said, what do you think? Oh, it's really cool. It was really great. And then one of them said, yeah, but I don't think I could afford to live here. There's huge new apartments going up right there. And the other one said, yeah, I mean, I don't know, where who's going to be able to afford this? I certainly can't. And, it really spoke to it on a very personal level.
We can shrug our shoulders and say that this is a real mistake and be sorry about it, but that doesn't solve the problem going forward. The initial goal of the city was to look at 5,000 new units of affordable housing units. And now there's a study that suggests we need to, over 20,000, possibly 24,000 or more. Think about the fact that we continue to grow this city. We're adding 1 million people in the next 20 years. We're going to gentrify a lot of neighborhoods where more people are going to be moving out. The average rent in our apartments now is over $1,100. We've got to provide some units that cost $350, $450, $550 for people who can afford those units, and we don't even have a plan in sight. We're not even thinking in terms of that number of units. We've got a lot of work to do, and we better get to work sooner rather than later because they only get more expensive.
And while the city has made a commitment to build those housing units, and I guess they're, 3/4 of the way towards their goal of 5,000 units, I can see criticism at both ends. Obviously, the advocates for affordable housing say opportunity lost, and the folks on the other end will say, you keep on wanting to spend tax dollars. You had an opportunity to let the private sector to partner with them and maybe take some of the burden off the taxpayers, and you blew it. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. And
there's another.
It's an old council that made those decisions, but it's the buck stops at City Hall, and that's a tough question to answer when it's put to those elected officials. Why, presented with the opportunity, did you let the opportunity pass?
There's another factor in this that I think ought to be opened up for a greater dialogue, and that's the difference between our county government and our city government. The city is making choices about the land that's available for those units, but it's the county that's managing those low-income units, and we ought to find a way to bring those governments together in a way that thinks cohesively and plans for the demands within our city.
We talk about a merger.
Wait, that's another one of those cicada stories.
It could
that
be
comes
on there
back
forever.
every couple of years.
And maybe it's time.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note with that 5,000 unit goal, the city's goal isn't just to build 5,000 new apartments. They also include in that preserving affordable units. So even if they hit that goal, a lot of that will be houses and apartments that already exist that they pay some money to renovate and keep affordable. So even if they hit that goal, it's not going to be 5,000 new apartments for low-income people. It won't be close to that.
And again, riding the train past all those new unaffordable places got to be frustrating.
Perhaps
for
we can
a
turn
lot
some of
folks.
those empty parking lots into apartments.
It does, but at the same time, let's not lose sight of the fact that as you ride by all those in the South End and soon to be up on the North Side too, you know, I tell people it's pretty cool, right? I mean, Charlotte,
Sure it is.
look at the taxes, the tax base that's bringing in. Look at the you know, the shiny growth. We want growth, right? Growth is, I've been here a long time, too long, but growth is probably the single biggest issue in various forms here,
Right.
whether you talk about schools, police,
Traffic.
crime, traffic,
Yeah.
development, and so forth. We're growing. That's pretty cool. We don't want to stop that momentum. So the affordable housing issue is one that we have put off. I think the city's put off too long. But at the same time, let's not lose sight of the growth and the momentum. When you're on that, every mayor except one for a long time was there in some form or fashion, and everybody's trying to claim it. So, you know, it's not as simple as just saying, well, they should do it. I mean, there's a lot of momentum.
Let's switch gears to our more and more outspoken police chief. Last week we talked about him weighing in on the immigration issue. This week he's talking about school safety and saying, what about the possibility of putting scanners or wands in every school? What about the possibility of having one entrance for every school, a hardened entrance with a security guard or a police officer there? It's the way to keep guns out of schools, but not everybody wants to go there, go that far that soon. Your thoughts about what the purely police version of security in schools is versus what the school board and the students and the parents' version of school safety is?
Well, Chief Putney made it very clear earlier this week at a news conference that, you know, look, the best way to prevent what happened in other schools around the country, and we are in a global, you know, discussion here, is keep the guns out of the schools. And so this is the first time I think he's really weighed in on this as really an option. There are two things that really work against it, perhaps. Money, of course. We're not talking about cheap. And the other is the optics. But somebody asked him at the news conference, aren't you a little concerned about some pushback? He says, look, I'm the chief of police. I'm used to pushback.
Yep.
I expect pushback. But we need to look at this as an option, because if I can't prevent a shooting, but I can keep the guns out of the schools, we won't have a shooting.
Think about the impact on our children, though, and I think that's something we better wake up to. Do we want our kids from kindergarten through 12th grade walking through a metal detector or being wanded walking into school every day of their lifetime? That plants fear in the brains of those kids, and I'm not sure that's something we want to have in place. But until we find another way to deal with terrorism, with violence in schools, we're going to have to find ways to adapt the schools to that environment.
Every time you walk into City Hall in Charlotte, you walk through a metal detector.
Every time you go to a CMS football game, you walk through a metal detector. I don't feel my freedoms, or I don't think the kids, they certainly don't act like their freedoms are being impinged by those metal detectors at football games. Again, the answer to what you said, John, is for every kid that feels like this is a problem, there's a lot of parents who say, now I can rest easy or rest easier knowing that the school campuses are a little bit safer.
I think that's a short-term response with metal detectors and wands. I hope it's not a long-term response. I hope our kids don't have to live with these kinds of threats for many years longer.
Jonathan?
I would just say, though, that on a daily, I wouldn't say daily, maybe a weekly basis, I mean, how many times would you hear, Mark, that there was a loaded gun or just even a gun found on a school campus somewhere across the Charlotte region? And to your point about walking into City Hall, I mean, you go to the courthouse, you have to go through a metal detector, and how many times do you go to the courthouse, or how many times do you go to City Hall? But just adding there that we consistently hear that it is still a problem for administrators finding guns in kids' backpacks, and a lot of times they're finding this out from other students. So there are students out there that are concerned about this as well.
I think, though, there is a case to be made that a metal detector merely could create another choke point, a large group of students, another target. I think as long as we've got gun culture mixed with mental health, mixed with volatile, usually, not always, but usually young men we're going to have this problem crop up in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it won't be inside a school, but unfortunately, our society abounds with guns and soft targets.
But it goes to the architecture of buildings as well. We've built a lot of schools with campuses with multiple buildings and multiple entrances to open the schools for the freedom of attending different classes and different disciplines.
Yeah, so retrofit would be very expensive.
We're all going to have to find ways to change, and you can expect schools will go back to one building units.
Yeah, well, Dr. Wilcox is going to make a presentation sometime this month about what he thinks, what the new school superintendent thinks about hardening schools, making them safer. I don't know if what Chief Putney has presented or suggested is going to be part of that, but we're going to get into a discussion of how safe is safe enough.
I know one piece of that I've heard is going to be trying to add funding to the school resource officer program so that you don't have to rely on things like a metal detector. You have more infrastructure, more resources as far as actual sworn officers on campus.
For now, it's in. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think we're going to be sitting here next year, 2 years from now even, with metal detectors in every school. I think the cost and the just the political, again, ramifications are a little bit much, but he started the discussion, right? And it becomes, you weigh the costs and the benefits, and quite literally. And people worried about the optics. John Paul, I'm with you. It's not a prison. It's a school.
Right.
At the same time, the optics that we saw in Florida, and we've seen in other schools, far outweigh whatever optics there are about kids going through metal detectors.
We're beginning to see the public move, and the failure of the federal government to act is now being offset in some ways by the action of some states around the country. Even our state legislature could take some actions to make sure that people are at least 21 to buy weapons. We've got to find some avenues for protecting our children and our schools and our communities from the over-excess of guns that exist today.
I know there's two sides to that story as well, but it's not an issue, as Mark said, that's going to be solved today, and we'll probably be talking about it before the end of the month as the superintendent makes his recommendation. So we'll revisit that. Atrium Health. I called it one big unhappy family, and that's kind of what it feels like right now. I have a conflict of interest, so I can't really talk about Atrium Health because of a family conflict of interest. But let me just toss the question now to you and step aside. Amid the lawsuits, amid the doctors on one side and the health care provider on the other side, how are patients, how are employees being affected by all this back and forth between the two sides right now? I'll let you guys take it from here.
So, one piece that I did just see yesterday, so it's all very convoluted, but the deal with the anesthesiologist and this company Mednax out of Florida, one thing I did see, to answer your question, is that their appointments are being canceled and their procedures are being canceled because of the back and forth between the doctors and Atrium Health.
And Atrium, formerly CHS, is such a big, omnipresent brand here that I think to see several different big physicians groups suing them and being countersued all at the same time is kind of shocking. Also, this is right in the wake of their deal with the UNC healthcare system falling apart, and you kind of have to wonder what's going on at such a large company to have so many things pop up at once. And they also provide a lot of care. Not just for people with insurance, but a lot of charity care, a lot of care for the most vulnerable in our community. So this is one institution that, aside from our, say, school system, probably affects more people in the Charlotte region than any other.
And I bet people are right now, just the average person doesn't understand, they saw this Atrium Health thing happen, and then all of a sudden there's this really nasty back and forth between the doctors and the hospital.
It feels a little bit like the billionaires versus millionaires that the NFL has, right? I mean, which side are you going to fall on? The doctors or the big hospitals? But the bottom line is, I would hope that what you're saying isn't commonplace. If you go to a hospital, somebody's going to take care of you.
Hopefully.
I mean, that's sort of the fundamental difference,
Yeah.
right? That and maybe the NFL discussions that have gone on about that sort of squabbling.
I don't think we realize the pressures that are on hospitals to cut costs nowadays. There's pressure from the federal government with the reduction of Medicare spending. There's pressure from insurance companies that can't absorb any more premium increases. The drug costs have gone sky high, and those are additional costs to patients going into facilities. And we have a new CEO of Carolinas Healthcare now, Atrium, who came here and can compare what's happening within the Atrium system with other systems that he's aware of. And he knows where there are avenues for cutting costs. The contract with Southeast Anesthesiology has been in place for 27 years, so it certainly deserves to be respected for the service that's been provided. But it ought to be analyzed for what costs can be cut. If it's a way to reduce our costs and not increase premiums at the same time, that might be a good step.
I was just going to say, what I read yesterday dealing with Southeast anesthesiologists almost sounded kind of like a soap opera in some way, because of the allegations of, handing out trade secrets and just really like, nefarious stuff that you don't really think of when you hear about a hospital, medical care.
And
don't want to think about
it's
it.
spilling into the public view in a kind of weird and, in my time here at least, unprecedented way. They are running ads in the paper
Billboards.
showing a doctor with a scalpel saying what will be cut next. They're the ads on the radio where you have a patient's heartbeat monitor flatlining to that ominous ee sound.
Allegations of defamation. I mean,
Yeah, so this is the kind of thing that you don't see happen very often with any large company, but much less a large company whose business is putting you to sleep and cutting you open.
Well,
It's unnerving.
You mentioned it.
It's unnerving.
on that, we'll leave that part of the discussion here. We didn't get a chance to talk about Charlotte's RNC, Republican National Convention application this week. We didn't get a chance to talk about the ACC renewing its contract with the city for its championship football game for the next 10 years. We didn't get a chance to talk about the latest Panthers bidders visiting town, but there's always another show. Right. So thanks, guys, for joining us this week. Thank you for joining us this week, and we'll see you next time on Off the Record.
A production of PBS Charlotte.